This is Game On, discussing the biggest games and all the latest sports news with Johnny Montalbano and Hank Indictor on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
It's showtime, folks. It's episode 28 of Game On here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. I'm Johnny Montalbano. That's Hank Indictor. Hank, good to see you. How are you doing?
Good to see you, too. I am still pleasantly surprised about a giant upset across the pond, but I'm sure you and I will probably get more into that a little bit later.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm thrilled because, the Giants, the Yankees are starting up their postseason run this week. The New York Rangers are back in action tonight. So we have so much to get to that this is going to be a show. And, it's this time of the year. And then soon you've got basketball coming in. I mean, it's going to be awesome. And we've got so much to get to. And, of course, folks, we want to hear from you. So we want you to please feel free to follow us across our social media accounts. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/GameOnETB. We're on Twitter at GameOnETB. We're on Instagram at GameOn_ETB. Our YouTube channel at ETB Network. Subscribe to that so you know when not only our stuff, but also Empty the Bench, Beyond the Bench, and all of our shows, MMA Outsiders, are going to be on as well. And again, we've got a lot to get to over the course of the show here today. And boy, I mean, where do we start? I mean, we've certainly got the Giants. We certainly have got the football to get to. I mean, there's a lot to get to. Even, down here in Carolina, Monday was a big day with the news about Matt Rhule being fired. So we're going to get to that. We've got hockey, as we said, as the NHL season is underway. There's just so much to get to. I mean, there's so much even college football stuff, and we're not even going to get to it today because there's just so much happening. But certainly a lot of baseball, Hank, to discuss, and that's where we'll lead things off with, as the wild card series is in the books, wrapped up with Game 3 between the Padres and the Mets on Sunday. The division series is underway right now as the Guardians got past the Rays, the Phillies got past the Cardinals, the Mariners got past the Blue Jays, and of course the Padres got past the Mets. And all of these series had an unbelievable moment or two in them. And let's start in order here. So let's start up at the top with the Guardians getting past the Rays, sweeping them in 2. And in Game 2, it's scoreless into the 15th inning when Oscar Gonzalez hits that walk-off home run to get the Guardians past the Rays. And so now they'll take on the Yankees coming up here in the division series. But Hank, when you look at that series to start, first off, I love the fact they were both early at 12 noon to start, selfishly. But you look at that Guardians series over the Rays, what did you take over from that?
What I took away was, and it's pretty much something that I've been saying about Cleveland all year long, I think they're a better team than a lot of us really gave them credit for. And, their pitching really proved it. Shane Bieber in the first game was absolutely filthy. I mean, other than that one home run he gave up, and how do I look up who hit it? Oh, Siri, can you tell me? Oh, yeah, Jose from Siri from the Rays, yeah. That is. He was absolutely filthy. And then, Game 2, Tristan McKenzie pitches just as well. Of course, he doesn't really get enough run support to get the win because it only took them until the 15th inning to end that series in the game with a walk-off home run. But I don't think it's really talked about how well their pitching is in this series. However, with that being said, we also need to acknowledge the fact that they did play some inferior competition down the stretch in the second half. I mean, we thought the Chicago White Sox were going to be a real threat to them. They were not. They underachieved. In fact, they finished at 500 exactly, and they're, as we speak, looking for a new manager. So we'll see how that team turns out. But I really think, if not this year, they definitely could be building something good for the future. And I mean, it definitely helps that you also had Jose Ramirez playing a little part in that series. He carried them pretty much to that division all season, and he had that big home run in Game 1. So I definitely think that Cleveland might be more of a threat to the Yankees than you think, but I think that's something we'll probably discuss a little bit later.
Yeah, I love this matchup because it was with two teams that I think do more with less than anybody in baseball. I mean, the Rays we've
And by the
talked
way, can
about.
I just say this too?
Yeah,
Terry Francona, I think he needs to be in the discussion for Manager of the Year award too.
I agree, and that's what I was gonna get to with this is the fact that you look at these two teams and the Rays, who had arguably going into the season the toughest division in baseball with the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, and even the Orioles, who I thought at the start of the year was going to be a team that could spoil a lot of teams. It turns out they actually played great this year. It was a great story. But you look at Tampa and all the injuries and stuff they had to deal with this year, and then you look at the Guardians, who had to deal with the White Sox, the Twins. I thought a Detroit Tigers team that was going to be up and coming, and I know they took a lot of steps back this year. But the Guardians, I believe, they are the youngest team in baseball, right?
Yes, that is correct. And in fact, you
that's
want to know a fun fact?
Yeah,
They had, I think, 16 players making their major league debut this year.
yeah,
and they're younger than even some minor league teams.
It's incredible, and really Ramirez was the only one that really was there throughout. And if it wasn't for Judge and Shohei Ohtani, you put him up there, and then you can put him up there for MVP. I think when you look at that team, and he'll probably get some first place votes this year. I don't think it's going to be enough to obviously get past Judge and Ohtani, but that's how great Ramirez was. And he signed that extension before the season started, and it was great to see. And so now this Guardians team, which really there's no real pressure on them, I don't believe, going to face the Yankees. They get past the Rays and advance on. And Terry Francona, once again, it just goes to show you how great managers can be, how they make a difference. And look at Francona with that team as they advance on. And kudos to the Rays, because again, they were a team that I thought was going to have an off year, but they still found a way to make the playoffs in a very competitive AL East. And Kevin Cash and that team, they always seem to find a way to do more with less than anybody else. McClanahan, I know they had some great pitching too, but still, it's remarkable what the Rays have done here these last several years. But so the Guardians advance, and then the second series in the first one in the National League, the Phillies and the Cardinals. This was incredible. The first game, the Cards are up 2-0 going into the ninth inning, and here come the Phillies out of nowhere, and they score not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 in that ninth inning of game one, which was just amazing because, Hank, you probably know this fun fact too. The Cardinals in their postseason history were 93-0 when they had a 2-run lead at any point in a postseason game. And the Phillies not only come back, but they absolutely put on a Johnny fun fact there. I think we're going to trade fun facts today. We'll share that.
No, I actually did know that. I like that, and that's true. That made that comeback all the more unfathomable.
Yeah, again, the Phillies are a team that I think can bop their way to some wins. They were able to do it in that ninth inning. It really wasn't even the home runs. It was, putting a rally together, which they were able to do. That's old school baseball, which I love to see. You get men on base, they move them over, they drive them in. It was really singles in that ninth inning against the Cardinals, and then they get past them easily to advance on as well. And now here come the Phillies. And it's a shame for the Cardinals because as a baseball fan, it would have been cool to see Pujols, Molina, and Wainwright get one more shot at it. But, the Phillies with Rob Thompson, who, by the way, good job. Congratulations to Rob Thompson. He's going to probably get Manager of the Year consideration in the National League, and he just got a 2-year extension on Monday for the Phillies. So the Phillies advance on as well.
So I have another fun fact for you. So as you pretty much predicted, we're going to be trading those fun facts. And actually, I wouldn't really call this a fun fact, but I think the big reason why the Cardinals didn't advance and we're sitting here having this shocking conversation about the Phillies being this far was because Goldschmidt and Arenado did not show up at all. In fact, I believe combined, they only had one hit in the 2 games. So
that's incredible.
But with that being said, you also have to give a lot of credit to the Phillies starting pitching. I mean, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, neither of them gave up a run in their starts in this series. That's why I don't know if it's as surprising as you might think, because those two pitchers are pretty decent at the top, but then it's when you get down is when you kind of get a little, iffy. But I think the Phillies definitely are interesting. However, with that being said, they're going to have their hands full against the Atlanta Braves.
Definitely, for sure. And speaking of comebacks, what the Seattle Mariners were able to do against the Blue Jays, incredible. 8-1 down in game 2, and they put up 9 runs to win 10-9. Seattle, Hank, you've been saying this for the longest time. My dark horse team was in the National League was the Cardinals. It could be the Phillies now, although I don't think it's a good matchup going against the Braves. But you've been on this Mariners train for weeks and weeks now, and they show you that they are a force to be reckoned with.
Actually, I've been on the Mariners train pretty much since they traded for Luis Castillo. And, obviously when you think about the series, you're going to be talking about the comeback, but in order for that series to have been over, you needed a good start from Luis Castillo. And that's exactly what you got in game 1. He went 7 1/3 innings, did not give up a run. And, this is why you gave up a good amount of your farm to get an ace like that. And, besides him, you also have guys like Kirby, Gilbert, Ray. I think they're definitely a team that, I think the Astros might have their hands full with, especially because, there's the possibility that the series could be tied after game 2 in Houston. And can you imagine what Seattle Stadium is going to be like for what will be their first home playoff game since 2001? It's going to be absolutely nuts. But, back to the second game, I think you got to give the Mariners credit. They kept chipping away until they finally took the lead, and it's such an amazing comeback story. And as far as the Blue Jays go, I mean, look, Vlad talked about the movie, but I think the real movie would be the sequel to the horror that was 4-1. If you're a Toronto sports fan, I think you'll know what I'm talking about.
Toronto sports, I tell you, it's incredible when they get into the playoffs and how they get knocked out is just unbelievable. The old joke was the Blue Jays basically tried to one-up the Maple Leafs, really, in terms of ways to get eliminated. I mean, that's just incredible. And, of course, the injury with Springer at the end there with the collision. But the Mariners, look, this is going to be one heck of a series against the Astros. Would you be surprised if they could take it the distance? I would not be, but I know we'll get to that series in just a moment. But one of the best stories in baseball in this postseason, the Seattle Mariners, and they advance on to face the Astros in the division series. And then this is really something that's been dominated. I've been listening to sports talk all day on Monday about the Mets and the Padres, and I want to talk about the Mets here, and I want to try and be fair about this because I think I'm taking a totally different angle than a lot of Met fans are, even in the hours and the days leading after this series. But as far as the series goes itself, Hank, I think when you look at it, the Padres are very underrated because, they do have some guys on the team. I mean, obviously Soto, who I know didn't really put up a whole lot of production when he got to San Diego, but he was still forced to be reckoned with. They've got, power guys that are like Myers. They've got Josh Bell, and a team that really was not really known for the home run ball did win game 1 via the home run ball.
Yeah, no, I think we seem to forget about how good the Padres lineup is and how they're capable of being able to hit the ball out of the park on any given night, especially when you look at the talent they had, even with the loss of Fernando Tatis to that PED suspension. But yeah, I'm definitely going to give the Padres the credit where credit is due. And, as of what to make of the Mets season, I mean, look, there's two ways to go about it. On one hand, you can look at it as it was one of the more historic Mets seasons in a long time. I mean, 101 wins is 101 wins, any way you look at it. Only one team in their franchise history had more in a single season, and that obviously was the memorable 1986 squad. But here's my thing with the Mets. And look, I'm not going to say that they collapsed because you and I have already had this discussion multiple times. 101 win, nobody with 101 wins in a season collapses, right? They just happen to get, one, a bad matchup, and two, you had Joe Musgrove pitching the game of his life in Game 3 of that series. Stuff like that happens. However, the Mets, we could have been avoiding this discussion. And do you want to know why? Because remember what I told you during the trade deadline. I specifically kept saying that Billy Epler went about it the wrong way. And it's really shocking when you think about it, because you have an owner in Steve Cohen who has a gajillion dollars and can spend on anything he wants. This is a guy who'll go out, he'll break the bank on 37-year-old Max Scherzer, who for the most part during the season still looked like he had it. He'll go out and sign other supporting players such as a Starling Marte, a Mark Canha, and Eduardo Escobar, who actually was one of the better Mets during that series. And then also allowed one of his previous GMs to trade for Francisco Lindor. So the Mets basically looked like they were going to go all in. But then when we get to the trade deadline, you and I can agree that we can forgive the Mets for not going after Wilson Contreras, just because you don't necessarily need to change catchers like that in the middle of the season. It could be a tough time for them learning a new system. My issue, you could have had JD Martinez, but instead you get a Tyler Naquin and a Daniel Vogelbach, who those two I don't necessarily have a problem with. But then we get to the Darren Ruff trade, and you trade 4 guys for Darren Ruff, including JD Davis, who I think was better than Darren Ruff. So that makes the trade even look worse. That's what I look at and say that's where the Mets should be kicking themselves. Because I'm sorry. With all that payroll, you shouldn't have 101 wins and then get eliminated like that.
Yeah, that's all fair. I kind of wonder, really, I don't think it was about payroll in terms of the trade deadline. I think it was really prospects.
Well, that too. Because as I always like to say, prospects are prospects are prospects. You never know if one of them is going to be the next Hall of Famer, say the next Mickey Mantle. I mean, those don't grow on trees. They're right. And you know what I've essentially compared prospects to? They're lottery tickets.
They're lottery tickets. Yes, you have said that. Yeah, what I think it is, though, Hank, is because this is just part of the new era of baseball where people want to have their homegrown. I mean, they want to have prospects come up with a team. Every team's doing that. Heck, the Yankees are doing it too. So everybody, I feel like is doing it. But yeah, see, the problem, I think, God, it's so weird because I don't think it was a collapse. I mean, you can't tell me the Mets collapsed here.
No, it's not.
I understand their struggles, but that's what a lot of Met fans on sports radio that I've been listening to for the past couple of days have been saying. And I get because they lost the series to the Pirates, the Cubs struggled in Oakland down the stretch in September. If that was in the early to middle part of the season, if it was sporadic in that stretch, it would not even been talked about. It's just the fact that you play 20 games over 500, probably from at a certain point, but the Braves played 30 over 500. And you look at and really when I break down this whole season, Hank, the Braves just had better talent all around. I think the Mets pitching staff was better, but I'd say the Braves did have some good pitching. I think their bullpen was better, and I think their lineup was better. I mean, if you want to break it down positional by positional, Matt Olson, Pete Alonso was kind of a push. Jeff McNeil, whatever position he plays at, I'd give the Mets advantage there, and I'd give the Mets the advantage at shortstop. But at third base, they have Austin Riley. You've got Acuna back in center. You've got Michael Harris. You've got Grissom in the outfield, who they also signed to extension. Catcher to me is advantage Braves, and again, I can't sit here and say the Mets collapsed. I think it's a disappointment the way it ended. But you look at this postseason. Look at what's already happened here. Look at the amazing comebacks that we've had just in the wild card series. I think it just goes to show you it may turn out this year that supposedly the best team in baseball is not going to win the World Series because it has just been that wild. Would you be surprised if the Dodgers, who won 111 games in the regular season, don't win the World Series? I wouldn't be.
And to be honest, I don't even know the Dodgers are necessarily the best team in baseball right now, at least
right now.
I don't even know that they are.
Right now. That's an excellent. That's the key phrase. It's right now. A lot of times in sports these last couple of years, it happens in hockey. It happens in football. It happens in baseball.
All the time in hockey.
Yeah, it's the team that gets hot at the right time and gets that going. Look at the Braves. The Braves struggled in the early part of the season. They've gotten it going from maybe All-Star break on. I think the only sport where really the best teams really do, quote unquote, best teams really do prevail is basketball, because I think the home field, in that case, the home court, I think proves itself more in basketball than it does in any other sport. So I don't think I'm not going to say it's a collapse. Is it a disappointment? Yeah, of course it's a disappointment. You win 101 games and you look at the team the way it is. Now, the one thing I will say that is fair is I don't know if the Mets can get back to 101 wins again going forward, because you've got a big group, a big question mark going into this offseason, and that's your free agency list. In fact, I pulled up the free agency list before we started the show here today, and look at some of these names that could possibly be free agents after this season. DeGrom, we know, has a player option. It's been talked about a lot. Is he going to opt out? Is he not going to opt out? Let's just say he does opt out. If he opts out, I don't think the Mets are bringing him back. So that's somebody. Carlos Carrasco could be a free agent. Edwin Diaz, Chris Bassett, Taijuan Walker, Trevor May, Brandon Nimmo, and then these other guys, Givens, Naquin. I mean, I'm not going to put them in there. But, Ottavino, Seth Lugo. I mean, so those are some pretty significant names here if you're the Mets. So you're looking at this pitching staff, which I know completely struggled down the stretch here. Look, DeGrom and Scherzer are going to have their starts where they struggle. It just stinks that Scherzer's worst two starts of the year were his last two. And so I really wonder if you take DeGrom and you take Bassett out of this rotation going into next year, that's 20 wins you got. That's at least 20 wins that you've got to replace.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree. And yeah, as I was going to say, I think it's definitely going to get worse for the Mets in the offseason when it comes to who you have to keep and who you have to replace. And as we pretty much established all year long, I think DeGrom is going to be gone after that in a matter of a few months. And sorry for that lame pun.
But I will say there's two things, though, with the Mets that it feels different than before. You still got Buck, and you've got Steve Cohen. So it's not going to be an issue. They're going to pay somebody to come in here. And maybe it takes a painful series loss like this against the Padres to maybe get back, to maybe feel better. I always there's a song lyric that I remember. I forget where it's from, and I'm not going to sing it because I don't want to get a copyright strike. But I'm just going to say the phrase. Sometimes you got to experience the pain to experience the joy. I don't think that's exactly like that.
No. I'm glad that you said that. That's exactly what I was thinking when I was talking about a certain blue hockey team that I can't wait to be back tomorrow.
Yes, but sometimes you've got to go through the pain to experience the joy. And maybe this happens, and the Mets could still be a 90-win team because they still have some great pieces on this team. We're not trying to downplay that, this was a one-year window. I don't think it's that. I think they have a couple of more years to do this, but this team's going to be different next year because you've got to decide here. If DeGrom opts out, I don't think the Mets bring him back. Bassett, I don't think is coming back. So that's already two guys you got to fill in that rotation there. And the guys that you have really right now, Carrasco, Taijuan Walker, are they coming back? That's another thing too. So really you're only penciled in with Scherzer, probably the David Peterson from the left side, Tyler McGill, if you want to put him back in the rotation. You're going to have to go out there and get another big-time starter. Now, I mean, I'm not thinking Justin Verlander. I don't think you want to be going down that road, even as great as Verlander has been. But you're going to have to go out there and get a big-time starter here as well. And maybe you have to change the lineup a little bit and configure it a little bit differently, because as much as I don't like the home run ball and I feel like it's destroying the sport, let's be fair. The Mets against the Braves over that series before the end of the season, what burned the Mets besides their starting pitching, it was power. The Braves had power in that series. The Mets had the more hits, but the power is what ultimately did the Mets in against the Braves, and it's also what did them in against the Padres in this wild card series. The Padres had 4 home runs in game 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mets,
no, I agree. And
so I would not. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Hank.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, 2 of the players in the Braves had home runs in all three of the games.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. So yeah, again, I'm not going to say it's a collapse. I'm just going to say that it's a disappointing season, but I will say that I'm not going to say it's a collapse, but 101 wins. When you look at this whole entire season, take the season as a whole, which I know it's very difficult to do, I still say it's a good start, but it just shows also they need more. And when you look at the Atlanta Braves here, and I know we're going to get into the divisional series in just a second, but you look at what the Braves have been doing here this season, not only on the field, but also with their players. They're showing you that they are going to be there for years and years and years to come. Because on Monday they did sign Spencer Strider, their young right-hander, 6 years, $75 million to go along with all the other signings and extensions that they've locked up. And Hank, I love this move. I love what the Braves are doing. See, the Braves are doing this the right way. They're locking up the young talent here.
Oh, I completely
for the
agree.
next several years.
I completely agree with that. And it's like I said on a lot of times when it comes to teams trying to lock up their young talent. You don't want to take the chance of him still being up in the air before the chances of arbitration are up, because that means you could end up losing that young talent and the possibility of the great things that said young talent can do for absolutely nothing at all. And, you know, you look at what the Braves have. They already have a World Series title, and now you've got Strider, you've got Harris, you've got Olsen, you've got Acuna. All these guys are going to be part of your core for a very, very long time. And I think that's going to be one obstacle that the Mets might have going forward.
One of the things why I think it's so difficult for teams to repeat championships in any sport is because your core group of players usually only last about a year, and then they hit free agency, they get traded to get other players in. But you take a look at what the Atlanta Braves have done, and a lot of this has been done recently. They've got Austin Riley signed through 2033, Michael Harris through 2032, Matt Olson through 2030, Spencer Strider now with this signing 2029, Acuna through 2028, Grissom through 28, Ozzie Albies, who's been hurt most of this year. We haven't really even talked about him this year. 2027, William Contreras 27, and Kyle Wright through 2026. I mean, that's quite amazing, and I wouldn't be surprised if the next guy that gets locked up into this core group of extensions is Dansby Swanson.
Yeah, again, they're going to be a threat for a long, long time, and I think definitely after that series that he had against the Mets, he's really made a case for an extension for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you do it, folks. You get your young core group of players, a lot of them homegrown. You get them signed through. I mean, it's so much easier than done. And of course, there's a risk with all this because these guys can all get hurt. But the Braves are going for it, and they look at this division, and the Phillies could probably still be there, but are they ready to take the next step? I don't think so. The Mets, I think, maybe have even hit their ceiling, but are still going to be pretty good. The Marlins don't get over the hump, and the Nationals are coming off a season where they just lost 100-plus games. And you don't think they're going to turn the corner here real quick. So I love what the Braves are doing. I think it's awesome. I think it's good to have the core group to be around for a while, and they also see this NL East, and they think they could really, have like another 1990s run, maybe with even more success than they did in the 90s, because they were a great regular season team, and then we know about the postseason. But this is a pretty cool thing, though, what Atlanta's doing, and this is why you don't see the repeat champions that much, is because the players that got you to win a championship, most of them go away or something like that. I mean, I think a perfect example of that is look at the Rams in the NFL, who just came off a Super Bowl win. Whitworth retires, Beckham's not there, and they look like a totally different team this year. But it's so difficult to do. I think the only other team I can think of in my lifetime that's been this consistent for this long was back in the day was San Antonio. This were the Spurs in basketball. But
I like that comparison. I totally see it.
Yeah, I think the Braves can be like this for a long, long time. I really do. But
another 15-year in a row division title run, maybe.
Yeah, I don't see how anybody takes the next step yet. I mean, it could be the Mets. I mean, the Mets could still give him problems again next year, but the Mets are going to have some big question marks that they got to decide in this offseason. Their team's going to be a little bit different next year. But I think the Mets still can be up there. I think the Phillies could still contend up there, but the Marlins and the Nationals are not going to be taking this next step. So I think the Braves ultimately, their real competition is really the Dodgers and maybe San Diego out west. And in the Central is so wide open, really. The Central could be a wide open spot. So really, there's not that many teams when you think about it that could be matching year for year what Atlanta's doing.
Yeah, I like I said, they're a team that I've constantly praised for doing things the right way. And gosh, if you're Noah Deibler right now, you must really enjoy the prospect of getting your whole team together for such a long, long time to come, especially because this is a guy. You have other people like Noah who've seen them when they were at one point like a laughingstock in Major League Baseball. So it's really great to see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of, let's see if the Braves can make their run here at a repeat as the division series are underway here on Tuesday. All 4 series are going to play. So it's 4-game Tuesday and this whole series in general. So this division series matchups, let's start first in the National League with the Phillies and the Braves, Padres, Dodgers in the division series. Hank, as I look at the Phillies and the Braves, the Phillies have power. We've said that all year. Harper has, since he's come back from his injury, he's definitely given the team life. The Phillies' top pitching is good, but I just look at this Braves team, and they're just too loaded offensively to me that I think they will get past the Phillies. It may take 4 games, but I do like the Braves to get past the Phils.
I think the Phillies are going to probably steal a game at Citizens Bank Park, but I agree. I have the Braves winning in 4.
So I will take the Braves in 4. The Padres and the Dodgers, I think this series could actually be a little bit closer than people think because, again, the Dodgers pitching to me, I think is still suspect. Now, their lineup, there's no doubt about it. Their lineup is as talented as could be. But you've got Urias, you've got Kershaw, you've got Anderson, but, Buehler, Tommy John surgery is out through probably all of next season. We still don't know really what is the status with Tony Gonsolin, who was going for the Cy Young Award before he got hurt. That Tyler Anderson's really never had a postseason start, but we know about Urias and Kershaw. But those guys, Kershaw, as great as he's going to be, is probably not going to give you length. And then that's going to force you to get into that bullpen. And that bullpen still scares me. And the biggest weakness with every team in baseball is middle relief. But that back end is still very, very suspect with the Dodgers. I think this series goes at least 4. I will give the Dodgers the advantage, but this series actually will be a lot closer than people think.
I am going to go with the LA Dodgers. Again, I'm going to go with a 4-game series. The reason being is because the Dodgers just have their way with the Padres, and it's been that way for a while. And I probably would have felt like the series would have been closer if the Padres had Fernando Tatis, but we all pretty much know how that worked out. And, he's not going to be getting any action in that series. However, it wouldn't surprise me if they have a tough time going up against Musgrove and Yu Darvish. But at the end of the day, I think the Dodgers just have too much talent, and I think they're the better team.
And going back to that Mets series for just a second, that's a very underrated part of why the Padres were able to get past the Mets. The Padres starting pitching was actually very underrated going into that series. And Musgrove was great. Darvish, great. And Blake Snell, also very, very good. Those are three guys right there. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to go toe-to-toe with a lot of these teams, but they could definitely give you a chance to win games. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think this series goes 4, but I think we're looking at another Brave Dodger NLCS in the National League. In the American League, Hank, it's your Seattle Mariners going up against everybody's
Seattle Mariners.
your Mariners
Even with all
against
the Yankee stuff in the background, you're still going to call them
Mariners
Seattle
Yankee ALCS. That would be awesome. But Mariners and Astros, how do you think the Mariners fare? I mean, we know we've spoken about it, but the Mariners going up against this Astros staff.
I think this is going to be a very, very close series. I have the Astros winning that in 5, but I would not be surprised if the Mariners split the first 2 games in Houston and maybe made things a little dicey, because you just know all those fans in Seattle are gonna be loud. I mean, look, they haven't been in the playoffs in a long time, and look what's happened the last time that team was in the playoffs. It's going to be such a good atmosphere. However, even though I think the Mariners might give a scare, the reason I have the Astros winning this series is simply because of this. Number one, Houston has the experience, and experience matters. And that, unfortunately, is something that the Mariners can't quite say they have. However, I was impressed with what they showed so far in that comeback against Toronto Blue Jays. So that has to be taken into consideration. The other thing is that the Houston Astros, look, say what you want about them. You know how strongly I feel about them as a Yankee fan. The fact of the matter is, that doesn't matter. They're good. They are absolutely loaded. And you want to know something? I wouldn't be surprised if that team somehow won the whole damn thing. Because look at that pitching rotation. I mean, even besides Justin Verlander, you have Garcia in there too. Absolutely filthy. And then that lineup too, you still have Bregman. You still have Altuve. Losing Correa didn't even seem to hurt them. In fact, you could argue that they didn't even skip a beat. And then they have a good amount of depth in the outfield. Astros have experience. I like their chances. Give me the Astros in 5.
I agree 100%. The Mariners will give them, I think, a little bit of a fit, but the experience here is a big, big deal. I think that's part of it. Now, the Mariners is definitely a different team than the Astros played earlier in the year. But if you're Seattle, you just get one of the first 2 games and you go back to Seattle tied at 1, anything's possible. But I like the way the Seattle team is between their pitching, and I like the way that their lineup is shaped up. But the Astros, just they're too good. That's I think ultimately at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. But I think this series does go 5. I think this will go the distance, and I'm going to take Houston to get past the Mariners in that division series. And then our Yankees going up against the Cleveland Guardians. A lot of talk with the Yanks about how they're going to shape up their roster, how they're going to shape up their pitching. And the big story with the Yanks here as we start the postseason on their side is about Aroldis Chapman and the story that came out over the weekend about how he missed a mandatory workout, and now he's down in Miami, and the Yanks decided to leave him off the postseason roster. So you have no Chapman, you have no Marinaccio with the injury. It's going to be fascinating because I know Boone's probably saying bullpen by committee, but I'm curious to see now who gets this closer spot as we get this series going. And that's the thing too that really I think you look at and you wonder if this is a close game late in these games. Are we looking at bullpen by committee? Are we looking at Holmes, who you hope resorts back to the Holmes of the first half? Are you looking at Jonathan Loaisiga, who I think should be the closer? But Hank, that's the thing you look at is this bullpen. How are you going to get these last few outs in these games?
Yeah, I agree. And the bullpen is pretty much the reason why I do not feel comfortable predicting the Yankees to sweep this series whatsoever. And in fact, if you look at the Guardians, And you could probably make the same argument for the Seattle Mariners, too. Out of all the teams, who has the least amount of pressure right now? I would say that might be the Guardians. And, let me play a little bit of devil's advocate. I think having the youngest roster and having such low expectations could very well work out in their favor if you really think about it. And like psychologically, when a young team goes into the playoffs for the first time, they don't always know to be nervous because they've never really been in this position before. So I think I think they're a bigger threat than people realize. However, at the end of the day, I think the Yankees will win this series in 4 just because of the amount of experience they have. But let me knock on wood just right about now.
How is their lineup going to be, the Yankee lineup, this postseason? Is going to be the $1 million question here.
And that's the other thing too. Like you look at how the lineup's been this year. It's been pretty vulnerable with the exception of Aaron Judge, which is all the more reason why I can't seriously, for the life of me, understand why people will try to argue with me that a two-way player from a losing team is more worthy of a player who put up a historic season and carried his team to a division title.
Yeah.
And the other question is how are they going to pitch to Judge? Because let's say Giancarlo Stanton comes into this series. I mean, granted, he's had a lot of good postseasons he's had some good postseasons in recent years for the Yankees, but what if this is a year that he struggles and doesn't get a big hit? You might have Aaron Judge coming up before him. Teams will probably want to walk him, or at the very least, they'll look at footage from how he struck out and maybe use that to their advantage. So it's not as easy of a series for me to predict as you'd think.
Would it make a difference if they keep Judge in the leadoff spot?
No, I think you have to put him like in, say, the 4th spot in the lineup. And the reason I say that is because you need him to come up for like a chance to like drive in runners. No.
Well, I would say that, but first off, I think Judge's best position in the lineup is number 2. Mm-hmm. I would put DJ LeMahieu back at leadoff. I would put Judge second. But
okay, Judge second, I can somewhat understand.
Well, yeah, I mean he's normally been a 2-hitter. I like the fact that during this home run that they've batted him leadoff, and it would make an interesting thing to bat him leadoff in a postseason game because if you start the top half or the bottom half of an inning, you're not going to intentionally walk him to start a game.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, a lot of his home runs were solo home runs, so you would like for some men to be on base. LeMahieu's that contact guy. If he's healthy, maybe he can give you a lot of production. Part of the reason why LeMahieu really struggled for a good chunk of the season and a lot of last year was that he was not healthy. If he's healthy, he makes a big difference. Matt Carpenter coming back, if he comes back and he's healthy, he's a contact guy from the left side. I think that's very, very critical. I would have loved to have Benintendi here. It's not going to happen in this series at least. But, yeah, you have that. Stanton is really a boom or bust kind of player. Gleyber Torres, I don't know what really he is. I don't like Donaldson. You know my thoughts about that. And then the outfield is really, you have Judge out there. Are you going to have Hicks on the roster? I don't know. Bader, I think, really is more of a defensive guy at this stage. You're going to put him in the outfield late. And we're doing this and we don't really know the full extent of the roster yet. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know about the lineup here. So we'll have to see. The Yankees are such a weird team going into this series, Hank, because I am going to take the Yankees to win the series, but I don't know. I think you're going to be sweating a lot in this. You're going to have a lot of nervousness in this run here because it is amazing how they were so dominant for the first half, and then everything had just seemed to fall apart really. And even Judge down the stretch, whether you want to say he was pressing or it was just a bit of a slump because he had been playing 55 consecutive games. I don't know. I think these days off are going to help, but my ultimate thing with the Yankees, I think their best lineup is with LeMahieu leading off and Judge second. That's what I would do. And then the third spot could be a combination of either. I mean, I would not even go out of the realm to put Carpenter third, or probably it's going to be Torres or probably Stanton. it's not really a set lineup. That's the thing. But we'll have to see. I think the Yanks get past here, but they have a lot of things you have to watch and see going forward here. It's going to be very, very interesting. And now Chapman not being there, a lot of people not liked the way he's pitched in the second half, and then that whole incident with missing the workout. A very weird way to end your Yankee career.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, that bridge to the closer spot, I think Boone's going to have to get very, very creative here because Cole's going to give you the length. Cortez, who's been great. I know at some points he's giving you length, but he's not really known to give you length. They're going to have to stretch him out. And then Severino coming back from the injuries looks like he's been pitching better. You got a lot of potential, but you also have a lot of risk involved with the Yankees in this postseason. But it's going to be very, very fascinating. Of the 4 series, though, Hank, I would say the one. I think we're taking all the favorites here, but of the 4 series, which one would you actually say before we move on here? Which one would you say is actually the best chance to have an upset in?
I am going to say the Mariners against the Astros.
Okay.
I know I said that the experience matters, but like I said, there's also a reason why I picked it to go in 5.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that does go longest. I wouldn't be crazy to say that the Padres could get past the Dodgers.
Yeah,
but that one will probably take 5 games to do.
Yeah, if the Padres are gonna win that series, there's no way it's gonna go less than 5. I agree.
But we'll find out. It's already been a great postseason just in the wild card series, and now we get the division series going, and it should be very, very fascinating these next few weeks of baseball. But I'll tell you what's been great also, not only are the Yankees in the postseason, but the football and, of course, our Giants. And you really want us to break down Thursday night's game last week between the Colts and the Broncos?
The less said about that, the better. All I'm going to say is Nathaniel Hackett lived up to the first 4 letters of his last name once again.
Period. Moving on. Let's talk about our football Giants. 4-1 through the first 5 games. This was amazing. And we've been using that word a lot with the Giants in the first 5 weeks, but to beat down 20-10 at halftime. And Hank, once again, one thing that the Giants have shown you through the first 5 weeks, most of it, has been second half adjustments. And they did it again in this game against the Packers. And it's incredible because you look at this roster. Are they the most talented team in the world? No. But look at what they were able to do in the second half here with second and third string running backs, with receivers that you've never heard of before. And Daniel Jones, once again, look, folks, the people that were on the Daniel Jones bandwagon, they were given a major boost on Sunday down over there in London because he was absolutely amazing on Sunday. And what he was able to do, he became one of only 4 quarterbacks. Here's a fun fact for you, Hank.
Let's go. Let's hear it.
Right? He was one of only 4 quarterbacks that was able to get to rally from a 15-point deficit to beat Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, my God. Wow.
And the names that he joined, I'm just trying to think of them off the top of my head here because I heard this stat on the radio on Monday. It was Andrew Luck.
Not surprised.
Yeah. I'm just trying to, I'll have to look it up here, but I know he was one of 4 quarterbacks to beat Aaron Rodgers after trailing by 15. But while I looked that up, I mean, what do you take from this game? I mean, there's so much too, but go for it.
I mean, here's my thing. The fact of the matter is, we're not even talking about the fact that there were a number of injuries that the Giants dealt with in finding a way to win this game too. Like, you look at the game-tying touchdown drive was what really, got me the most excited. And the reason why I say that, they did this with a wide receiver core of Marcus Johnson and David Sills, who had good games, by the way. You got to give those guys credit where credit is due, but they're not names you look at and say, oh, they're superstars. And not to mention, you had Saquon Barkley missing that drive because he had to get his shoulder looked at in the 10. And so Matt Breida picked up the slack and did pretty well on that game-tying touchdown drive. And then that was when I realized, oh my gosh, they might win this game. And I'm like, even if they lose this game, it's like, they were in it, they hung around, and they did pretty much more than a lot of people expected them to do. And then, as you mentioned, second half adjustments. Johnny, the Giants defense practically shut out the Packers in the second half. I don't care about the safety. That wasn't on the defense. That was the Giants trying to milk the clock. That wasn't a defensive thing. The Giants defense got a shutout. And once again, what have I often said? Good coaching makes a huge difference. Wink Martindale has done excellent in changing things up and switching them around in the second half. And of course, you also have to say the same thing about Brian Dable and Mike Kafka.
It's just, the talent, the talent level on this team, and everybody's producing.
And let me just say this. Imagine if Leonard Williams comes back. Dexter Lawrence had some big moments even in his absence. Imagine you're going to have him back to join Dexter Lawrence, and then you have Thibodeau and Ojulari start to really show up.
Yeah.
This team's going to be dangerous. They're going to be dangerous.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's incredible. It absolutely is. And Daniel Jones, what he was able to do on that bum ankle, and what you notice he's not doing is he's not making mistakes.
Do you know how many turnovers he's had so far this year?
1. Yeah. It was the first game against the Titans.
And Tom, you can ask Tom, he'll probably tell you Scavetta, that is, not to be confused with Albano, who's filling in for Nick with the producing today.
Yep.
Scavetta will tell you that interception wasn't really his fault.
I mean, he's been great. He's had his moments, he's had some bad moments, but what Daniel Jones has done is he's been good enough. He's been good to great enough to have the Giants win games, to give the Giants a chance to win games. And that's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But what they were able to do, and look, you credit the defense too, because Aaron Rodgers looked off the whole game. I have a Packers friend who we were actually watching at a bar on Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon there. And he kept saying, run the ball. And the Packers got away from the run in the second half. When they were running it, they actually were all right, but they got away from that a lot in the second half. And Rodgers was missing guys left and right in that second half of that game. And you really wonder, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let me just say this too. Looking at the schedule going forward, the Giants have some pretty winnable games coming up. Some of the games that I looked at are more winnable than what I thought earlier in the season.
I had said this 4-week stretch that they had with the Packers here in week 5, and then the Ravens this upcoming Sunday, followed by Jacksonville and Seattle. If they went 2-2, I think you'd sign up for that, going to the bye week at 5-3.
Absolutely.
Now you might, right? I mean, because I think Baltimore's still going to be a tricky spot. Jacksonville, I think, is a favorable matchup. And Seattle, it's tricky because going to Seattle could always be kind of a sneaky, tricky spot. But you go to the bye week 5-3, I mean, you'd sign up for that right now.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, second half adjustments, though, just absolutely great to see. And, again, the coaching staff, what they've been able to do here and what exactly happened here in week 5. I mean, it was amazing at 12:30 in the afternoon to actually feel like you were on cloud 9 watching football the rest of the day, realizing you didn't have to worry about any stress. But what that was like, just absolutely great to see. And important, too, because this NFC East is just – it's a beast now. I mean, it went from the NFC least to the NFC East that quickly. But a big win for the Giants and a great start to the Sunday slate of games. And then just going through the rest of these here, Hank, real quick, not much to mention with the Bills and the Steelers. Bills just absolutely destroyed them. I mean, third play from scrimmage, and Josh Allen hits Davis with a 98-yard touchdown pass. You can turn off your sets right there. I mean, it was 10-0 before Kenny Pickett even got the ball. in that one, and the Bills just completely took care of business. Chargers just eked out a win against the Browns, 30-28. Browns are a crazy team because they're 2-3, and really they are a few plays on either side away from possibly being 5-0. 4-1 at the very least, but possibly 5-0 too. But Chargers eke out a win, 30-28. Texans get past the Jaguars, 13-6 in a game that was very, very ugly. And so the Texans get their first win of the year. Tough loss for Jacksonville there. Vikings get past the Bears, 29-22. Bears actually showed you some things, but they're still not any good.
No,
Vikings get
not
past
ready yet.
I think one of the bigger surprises to me was how the Patriots just absolutely destroyed the Lions 29-0. And again, third string guy, Bailey Zappi, does the job. Lions just could not get anything going against that Patriots defense, which actually has not been really talked about a lot.
I have unfortunately came to a pretty sad realization when it comes to the Detroit Lions. And that sad realization is I'm slowly starting to think that we kind of drank the Dan Campbell Kool-Aid a little too soon because of Hard Knocks.
Well, I think that they're actually getting some talent.
I mean, look, don't get me wrong. They're looking a little bit they've looked a little bit better for the most part, but that's not to say I haven't seen some of the same ill-advised coaching calls that he made last year. Let me put it this way. I told you about the moment where he tried the 51-yard field goal when it was 4th and 4. He could have either gone for it or tried to pin the Vikings deep in their own territory.
Mm-hmm.
This game, when it was 6-0, they're driving deep in the Patriots territory. He goes for it on 4th and 9 when you probably should have gone for the points early in the game. That makes no sense to me because he literally made the opposite mistake that he did in the Viking game. It's like, oh, I'm so frustrated too because I keep rooting for this guy. Like, I love how they all want to play for him, run through a brick wall, but when he makes decisions like that, it's like, Hard Knocks. Were you trying to give us some Kool-Aid there? And you look at his record; it's only 4-17. So, yeah, not great.
Rebuilding since 1957 Lions. I picked the Lions in the first 5 weeks.
And look, unfortunately, we kind of, most of us Giants fans, I mean, I may or may not be guilty of this too. We kind of drank the same Kool-Aid with a certain Patriots special teams assistant coach whose name I'm not going to mention.
That's very, very fair. Yeah, you're right. But that Patriot defense, they're going to keep them in games. To me, though, the Patriots are still not a good team. Even though they destroyed the Lions on Sunday, I'm still saying they're not that good. But they did play well, and their defense actually has been playing very, very well in the first 5 weeks. Wild one in New Orleans. The Saints got past the Seahawks 39-32. It's amazing, again, when Andy Dalton's there and more so when Jameis Winston's not there, Saints look like a completely different offensive team.
Hey, sometimes they need the bakery to be closed every once in a while.
And again, Seahawks, Geno Smith didn't play that bad. They might actually not be that bad. I mean, again, they're going to spoil some teams this year, but the Saints 39-32 there. How about the Jets 40-17 over the Dolphins? I took the Jets in a kind of an upset special for the third time this year, and boy, did they do it. Now, of course, the big story in this game is the fact that Teddy Bridgewater, first week after the new concussion protocols put into place, which, by the way, folks, again, NFL being reactive, not proactive in how they're handling this whole concussion bit. But Teddy Bridgewater, I think it was first play or two of the game for him, and he takes a hit and gets put into concussion protocol. And so enter 7th round pick from Kansas State, Skylar Robinson is his name. But yeah, this was a hard watch with Skylar in there. But you know what, though? The Jets, got to tell you, I mean, they've got players. They've got, it's their young players that are getting it done. It's Wilson. It's the running back. It's Breece Hall. It's Garrett Wilson on the receiving side. But it's really their running game as to how they were able to get this win. And their defense, too.
I think
his name. I had the Skylar part right. Skylar Thompson is his name. He went 19 of 33 for 166 yards and an interception.
Yeah, the Jets, I think, are definitely showing some signs of potential, but again, I still think that's going to be another year or two away. But can you imagine, though, if they went into Lambeau and found a way to upset the Packers?
I think that would be – you'll be ringing alarms on both teams' side. The Jets showing you that they actually can compete.
Ringing an alarm. You know what I'm thinking
right
now.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll hear a lot of that.
a certain other show I'm thinking about.
Yep, that's for sure. But yeah, if they go in there and beat Green Bay on Sunday, then the Jets are going to show you that they are going to be in it for a wild card, and the Packers are going to be, searching for answers. I don't know if they can get it done. I know the lines opened up big on actually really disrespectful on both New York's ends. I mean, I'm not saying that the Jets and Giants should be favorites going to the game in Week 6, but boy, they should be at least be getting a little bit more credit here through the first 5 weeks. And again, this Jets defense was unbelievable against Skylar Thompson. He really couldn't get much going. The running backs, just what they were able to do. Breece Hall, who I like a lot. I like Garrett Wilson receiving wise. Zach Wilson has shown you that, again, he only had to throw the ball 21 times in this game. It's a good test for them next week up there in Lambeau. I think that was another thing, too, with the Giants game for just a second. The fact that this game wasn't in Lambeau got very, very fortunate. Saw a lot of Giant fans there in London. But yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. I like the fact that we can now go into the postseason in baseball and we can still be talking relevant football from our team and even on the Jets side of things as well. And they'll have a good test coming up against Green Bay on Sunday. But yeah, 40 points and snapping that 12-game losing streak to AFC East opponents. Well, another big story from this week, Hank, came in the Buccaneers-Falcons game. Bucs won 21-15. They had dominated this game for 3 quarters. Falcons were making a rally late. And then late in the fourth quarter, when it looks like Tom Brady's getting sacked, here comes a penalty flag, and Jerome Boger roughing the passer to wrap this one up. Boy, I watched this, and yeah, roughing the passer, I think not. The two calls that seem to be the most inconsistent in football, pass interference and roughing the passer, and we saw that a lot on Sunday. But, Hank, this – the conspiracy theories are out there that this was Tom Brady getting another bit of help, and because it was Tom Brady, that's why he was roughing the passer. I just think it was a flat-out bad call. I'm not going to go the conspiracy route, but yeah, that was such a bad call.
Well, here's the thing. If it was a conspiracy route, then I'm going to play devil's advocate and say if you're a Falcons fan, you might actually want to thank the refs because, I mean, you're really not in a position to be competing this year. And if anything, a loss might help you with the tank, no?
Falcons have been in every game.
They've been in the games. They just – the talent. I just don't see the talent on that roster.
Well, they have talent. The problem is in this game on Sunday, and the reason why they were such big dogs was you've got Marcus Mariota starting. You did not have your first-round tight end pick in Kyle Pitts. Cordell Patterson, who's been the third best running back in the league this year, he was out. So who the heck did you have to possibly run or catch the ball? And that's why you're not really able to put up much offense until it was 21-0. And granted, you only made it a one-score game, and you actually did have a chance. But, yeah, they just didn't have much. And, yeah, that was such a bad call. But they're two. But nevertheless, they're 2-3.
Mm-hmm.
Them and the Texans both, the two teams that I think we could debate 1-2 in terms of maybe being the worst teams in the league going into this season, have been in every game through the early going.
Mm-hmm.
Really, if you think about it, I think the team that looks the worst, and even though they're 2-3, are the Bears. And even they made things interesting against the Vikings yesterday. But, yeah, Bucs get a much-needed win considering that their injury situation, and Tom Brady once again avoids losing 3 games in a row, which is something he has not done in 20 years. Maybe one of the uglier games on paper on Sunday, the Titans and the Commanders. And, boy, I'll tell you, when we were talking about the Browns, how the Browns are going to Browns, Carson Wentz is going to Carson Wentz. Because here he is having a chance to come down, win the game. They're on the goal line late against Tennessee, down by 4, chance to win it. And what does he throw? What does he do? He did throw. What does he do? He throws an interception. And it's like, oh boy.
Carson Wentz.
And I tell you, and I know we're going to get to the Panther game in just a second, but that's Ron Rivera to me is also somebody who could be on the hot seat here because the Commanders were supposed to be better than 1-4, and now in the NFC East, which now has a 5-0 Eagles team, a 4-1 Cowboys team, a 4-1 Giants. What's the ceiling here for Washington? I mean, in all seriousness, you trade three picks to get Wentz, and it's just been an abomination there in Washington. I mean, really, they're 1-4, and they were really lucky to get that one win against Jacksonville to start the year. It's just been absolutely dreadful down there in Washington. And like I said, Ryan Tannehill, this was his kind of game that he needed against that Washington pass defense, and he was able to do it. So the Titans win, and all of a sudden now the Titans go to 3-2. So a team that I didn't like at all going to this year, now all of a sudden with 3-2, and in that AFC South, maybe they are now the favorites to get out of the South there as they go to 3-2. 49ers get past the Panthers 37-15. Just another awful day in Carolina. Another dominant effort on the San Francisco side. Another awful effort on the Carolina side. The result of that, and we'll get to this once we wrap up the games, we found out on Monday that the Panthers did fire Matt Rhule after a 1-4 start, and now Baker Mayfield's dealing with an ankle injury. So it's just it's just an ugly scene down there in Carolina, Hank.
Absolutely. And now that Matt Rhule's gone, I think you're going to be hearing a lot of questions about are they going to blow it up? I mean, we know that a lot of teams, including the Giants, have been calling out for DJ Moore and Terrence Marshall, and not to mention they also got rid of the defensive coordinator, Phil Snow, which kind of makes little sense because I think the defense was their strong suit, and especially when you consider a certain name I'd rather not repeat as their offensive coordinator.
It's showing himself. Look at Baker Mayfield. He's 31st in the league in completion percentage, and now he's dealing with an ankle sprain. It's just awful. We'll get to Carolina some more here after we wrap up these slated games. Eagles get past the Cardinals 20-17. Hank, got to give you credit. You said you thought it was going to be closer than a lot of people thought. And once again, another home loss by Arizona at home. And the Eagles, not pretty. Cardinals were driving down the field, had a chance to tie it late, were unable to do so. But sometimes that's what great teams do, though. They find ways to win all the way around. And now I know the Eagles these last 2 weeks, they had to come back from 14-0 down against Jacksonville, but they won that game big. And then this one wasn't pretty either. But guess what? They came out with a win. That's really all you can ask for there. So the Philadelphia Eagles 5-0 in the season.
Yep, got to give them credit where credit is due. I may have drank in the Kyler Kool-Aid a little bit in thinking that they would pull off the upset, but nonetheless, strong defensive effort for most of the game.
Yeah, I mean, they did show you some things. And again, I think Arizona's just trying to tread water here until DeAndre Hopkins is eligible to return from his suspension. But it sets up an NFC East showdown on Sunday Night Football next week, and they'll do it against the Cowboys, who were able to get past the Rams 22-10. And what did I tell you that game in LA was going to be? It was basically going to be a Cowboy home game, and it certainly was. And the Rams just look absolutely lost out there right now. Super Bowl hangover, the fact that Whitworth's no longer there, it's very, very tough going in LA. But Dallas, got to be fair, they are doing what they need to do, and they get past the Rams here. And now it sets up an epic showdown next Sunday night, as it'll be the Cowboys and Eagles there on Sunday Night Football. But Hank, I got to tell you, I mean, I was on with you when we spoke about it after week 1, how I thought the Cowboys were done. Well, they're sure not done. And Cooper Rush is doing just enough to help them win games, and their defense just continues to be absolutely stifling so far in the year.
Yeah, for sure. And then you had the Ravens winning that big game against the Bengals on Sunday night. We'd been waiting all day for that game, and that game actually helped me with fantasy because if anything, I had Justin Tucker as my kicker. I was winning by a little bit, nails all 4 field goals, and helped me get the victory. And this is despite my moronic decision. Well, I don't know if I'd call it moronic decision, more so as neglectful decision to forget about benching Jonathan Taylor, which I did. And once I realized it, I'm like, oh boy, I might lose. Nope, I got lucky.
Yeah, big win there for the big win for Baltimore, the Ravens there on Sunday night, and now they'll face the Giants on Sunday over at MetLife. And of course, Hank, we've been talking about it. The big story really coming down after Week 5 was Matt Rhule being fired after a 1-4 start, and not only just that, Phil Snow, the defensive coordinator, like you said, he also got fired. But Baker Mayfield was seen walking with a walking boot, and now he's dealing with a high ankle sprain. And according to sources, he's going to be out for a few weeks, and it looks like it's going to be PJ Walker time in there as they will face the Rams on Sunday. And boy, I follow Carolina very closely now, living here in South Carolina, and it's funny because I'll tell you this, and shout out to my mom because she was over and we were watching the game. We actually were watching this game, and she came to me after the 49er game, and she said to me, "Do you think that Matt Rhule could be fired off of this kind of performance?" And I said, "Well, the seat's been warm down there for Matt Rhule for the longest time. I think there's certainly a possibility that it's getting hot, really hot, and it boiled over, and he did get fired on Monday. But you look at this team, and Hank, I mean, they were supposed to, they won 5 games last year, and that was with a quarterback mess. They were supposed to build off of that with Baker coming over, with Christian McCaffrey being healthy. Now, his last couple of weeks, he's been kind of banged up. He's been very limited in practice. I know he's played, but you don't have him, and then you're talking about now DJ Moore, who's probably their other name that people know about, and now he's been in trade discussion possibly, including our New York Football Giants. It's going to get really bad over there in Carolina.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and I wasn't even sure if it was going to happen as soon as it did because I thought, that's such an expensive contract. But look, the Panthers, they played themselves big time, and now you're going to be paying him a little over $40 million, and he hasn't even gone through half the years of his contract. Yikes.
Yeah, he might be going back to college the way this is looking.
And I think he probably will get another chance somewhere at college because if you look at his track record, like obviously you see the first year, it's a bad start, but then second year they start turning around. By the third year, he has Baylor and Temple playing in bowl games.
Look for 2 teams in the Big Ten there that have both fired their coaches. Nebraska, Scott Frost, and Paul Chryst out there in Wisconsin, both gone. Maybe something along those lines after this season to watch as a possibility there.
And hey, sometimes coaches are just better off in college than the NFL.
Yeah, it's so rare. And you know what? Nick Saban's like that. Nick Saban was college, came over to the pros, and now he's back in college. And we know what he's doing there in Alabama. By the way, huge college football weekend coming up this weekend, especially with Alabama playing Tennessee. We're going to get a lot more into that in my next Monty moment, which I'll tell you right now could be one of the longest ones that I've done because it is that epic of a college football weekend coming up this weekend. But yeah, as far as this goes, I don't know where Carolina goes from here. I mean, you do have the Rams on Sunday, but maybe that's the spot for the Rams to get it right. But you also look at that play. You look at that place on Sunday. There was an aerial shot that I saw on Twitter. Did you see how much 49er fans were there? It's like, wow.
Well, that fan base travels well, though. It's not a surprise.
They do. Yep. We know that obviously with the Rams and the during the regular season late last year, but
like I've seen a lot of red in the Meadowlands during Giant games.
Not this year.
No, not this year. This year,
not anymore.
A lot of blue, but
like we said, Giants probably one of the best stories right now through 5 weeks, and what Daniel Jones has been able to do, 3 game winning. Also, another thing too, Daniel Jones, real quick, 3 game winning drives. Nobody else in the league has that this year. Nobody has 3 except Daniel Jones. But
maybe he does have a clutch gene.
He does, and you know what? He's not turning the ball over, and he's not making many mistakes, and he's giving the Giants a chance to win games. That's all you can ask for as they go in. But we will make our Giants pick as well as every pick in the National Football League as we do this Friday, like we do every week with our NFL picks against the spread. That'll come up this Friday here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Well, Hank, obviously we got one more big thing to talk about, and I think it's only appropriate that we end the season talking about the National Hockey League being back and our New York Rangers, who are part of a doubleheader on Tuesday to get things going as they an Eastern Conference rematch, Eastern Conference Finals rematch against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I guess we'll start with the Rangers since we're both Ranger fans here, Hank. You go into the season, obviously the expectations are different than they were last year. They're pretty high now, coming off of the year that they had last year. The cast of characters, for the most part, pretty much the same group of guys, and that's how it helps. But really, I think the thing with the Rangers here also is what else happened with all the other teams in the East. Carolina, the Hurricanes are still going to be great. But did anybody else in that Metropolitan Division really improve that much?
I think the Devils may have improved to a little bit, but I don't know if they're there yet for a playoff spot. In fact, I have a weird feeling they're going to get off to like a rough start, and then this might be the year where they fire Lindy Ruff, their head coach, and maybe that leads to them getting better, but it probably could end up being something that's too little too late. And the Flyers had some interesting moves. They got former Rangers, much maligned defenseman Tony DeAngelo, who had a good season in his 1 year with Carolina. And there's also the question, how are he and new head coach John Tortorella going to get along? And then obviously you look at the usual suspects. Pittsburgh, I think, is definitely going to be on the decline. I mean, you still have an aging Chris Letang on your roster, and, you re-sign Lemieux. You still have Crosby, who still pretty much has it at this point, but I don't know that they're deep enough to make another good run like in years past. But then again, maybe they find a way to upset whoever they play in the first round. Hope to God it's not us. If it's us, I would have a stroke, but that's besides the point. The Islanders, let's see, what were the free agent moves they made this offseason? Oh, wait, there weren't any free agent signings that they made this offseason. I'm not very high on them. And Columbus, while they did get Johnny Gaudreau, I don't think they really made too much improvements either. Now, even though I don't think the Carolina Hurricanes had a great offseason, I mean, you let go of Tony DeAngelo, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but the way that they replaced him and getting an aging Brent Burns, I don't know if that's necessarily the answer. You lose Vinny Trocheck, and now you have Max Pacioretty on that team, and he might not even play for another month or two due to his injury. You still have Svechnikov and Sebastian Aho, who I think are absolutely fantastic. I think the other question mark for Carolina is goaltending. Is Freddie Anderson going to be able to bounce back after he missed the whole playoffs due to an injury? And then you get to the Rangers, and look, I truly believe that the Metropolitan Division is the Rangers to lose. And this is not just me saying that because I'm a diehard fan and I'm all rah-rah like Mr. Super fan fanatic or whatnot. You look at what they did this offseason. Now, obviously, losing Vetrano and Kopp was a tough one. But at least you found a way to replace Strome and Kopp with the signing of Vinny Trocheck, who should definitely improve with the faceoffs. Now, obviously, he had his tough moments going in preseason, but I'm taking that with a grain of salt. You have Panarin, who probably people were talking about Panarin having a quote unquote down year. I mean, granted, the goal total wasn't high. He still had his career high in points.
Yeah,
I'm looking at Artemi Panarin to have a serious bounce back and serious revenge year. I think this is going to be the year you see more out of Capo and Lafreniere. This is where they'll probably be getting more ice time, and I love that they brought back Sammy Blais to be a good fourth liner. I think obviously I don't know that he should be getting much playing time, but he's another good veteran presence that could help the lineup. Now, obviously, there are other ways in which, I think the Rangers can improve. I would say that they definitely need more center depth. And I also am hoping they can get another first-line winger because while you do have Panarin and Trocheck, I don't know if Kravtsov is the answer. And while he had his moments where he had some like growing pains during preseason, I really think this is where him fleeing and trying to play in Russia could come back to haunt them. And, it brings the question, who do the Rangers go after a Patrick Kane during the trade deadline? I think this is going to be a year where Chris Drury is going to be extremely aggressive in trying to make the Rangers a better team. So I really think this might be a year the Rangers can go a step further. Now, am I saying they're going to win the Stanley Cup? No, I'm not going there because, first of all, like, look out in the Western Conference, Colorado still would scare the shit out of me if like we have to play them in the fourth round, should they make it there, which I think is a very real possibility. And the reason I say it's a real possibility is simply because of this. You look at the other division. That's got some pretty good teams too, in the Lightning, the Leafs, and the Panthers, but I don't fear the Leafs and the Panthers as much as the others. I think Ottawa might be a team that surprises people. Tampa Bay has had a lot of great runs in the past few years, and while they certainly would be a team that scares me the most, one thing to think about is I think they have played a lot of hockey over the past few years. That's a team that could get extremely burnt out over the course of the season. And, let's not forget, they lost a few key pieces this offseason. Ryan McDonough is going to be a guy that they're probably going to miss, not so much for his strong defensive play, but we know as Ranger fans, he's a leader in that locker room. And I also think losing Polak could hurt them. He was a free agent that ended up going to the Devils, and he was one of their big goal scorers over the past few years. So it should be interesting to see. But again, I'm not as like overly worried about the teams in the Atlantic Division. I didn't even mention the Bruins, and I think this is going to be the year the Bruins decline, by the way. Mm-hmm. So all things equal, I think the Rangers have an excellent shot at making it to the Stanley Cup Finals. The only team that really I am scared of is the Carolina Hurricanes. And the reason for that, even though I think the Rangers are the better team, is because, they're the division rival that has the most talent. And if we get them in a 7-game series, you better believe I'm going to be shitting my pants, because that's a series that I thought last year, like, we were going to have our hands full with, and who knows if they could get revenge. And I'm hoping I don't speak that into existence, but I'm extremely confident in the Rangers this year. And I trusted him at the beginning of the season, but I've slowly developed the habit of giving Chris Drury the benefit of the doubt and improving the roster. And he's done a great job with the way he's built them since becoming the GM.
Yeah. See, I think Carolina and I think the Hurricanes and the Rangers are going to go neck and neck here for the top spot in the Eastern Conference. I think they're that close to each other, like they were. I think Carolina was better last year. I think they closed the gap a little bit. I think it's going to be neck and neck for the top spot in the Eastern Conference. I'm looking at a couple of the teams here in the East that are going to be interesting ones to watch. You said the Devils. I'm curious what the Islanders are going to be coming off of last year, which was kind of a dud. And while I don't think the Flyers are going to be that good, I don't think you can discount, though, John Tortorella being there.
Oh, no. I think – actually, I have a hot take regarding the Flyers. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they somehow improved enough to sneak in, but that's about the extent as to where I think they'd go. I think they'd get bounced like relatively quickly in the first round series.
I just think Tortorella being there, the experienced guy, I think it's crazy. His kind of style of coaching in there in Philadelphia is going to be quite amazing to see. But yeah, I think that they're going to be an interesting team to watch. And I'll tell you, I think the Penguins are going to just eke in too. I think they've got one last ride in them. I know I said that last year, but I'm going to say it again. I think they've got one last ride too. As far as the Atlantic goes, I think Tampa Bay is still going to be very good. I like Florida a lot. I like the Panthers to make a run. I think Toronto will be in there as well. But when I come out of it, when I look at the West too, I am really, really high on Edmonton. Obviously, I like Colorado, but I think Edmonton makes a big time push this year out of the Western Conference.
I mean, the Pacific Division is Edmonton's to lose, because the only other team that's a legit threat is the Calgary Flames. And all things considered, despite the fact that they ended up losing their star in Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk, like, to the trade. They found a way to improve. They got back Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, which I actually think was a decent trade for them. And so I think they might be able to keep pace in the Pacific. But otherwise, yeah, the Colorado Avalanche, I still think are an absolute, like, monster. And I didn't even mention the fact that Calgary got Nazem Kadri too.
Yeah, I think the Pacific Division is going to be all Canada. It's going to be Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver.
Ooh, wow.
1, 2, 3.
I like that. See, I think it's probably going to be LA because that's another young, talented team that could definitely improve. But, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Vancouver found a way to sneak into the playoffs.
And, the tough thing is you think of the best teams as being the ones that go into the Stanley Cup Finals. But like we mentioned earlier in the show about baseball, hockey is always that sport that, somebody gets hot at the right time, goaltender plays really well, they can make a deep run too. But as far as the two conferences go, like my Stanley Cup matchup, let's see here.
I don't want to go there. Please, no, don't make me do this.
Well, it's got to be Carolina and the Rangers in the conference final there.
No, that can't happen.
Oh, it can't happen. That's right. Well, those will be the top two in the.
Pardon me, Sam. That can't happen.
Oh, we would like that to happen, though. No, that's right. I think they'll probably meet up again in the playoffs for sure. But
I hope not. I hope somebody takes them out before we have to worry about them.
I think they're too good. I mean,
I think they are, but that's just me.
I still think Carolina's winning the Metropolitan Division, but it will be a lot closer than it was last year. I think the Rangers have closed the gap, and I agree with you. They're probably going to make a move or two by the trade deadline.
Now, if the Rangers somehow lose out on the division and then they play Carolina, okay, maybe I wouldn't be as, like, nervous, but still, I really think the Rangers are the better team than Carolina. Again, this isn't. If I didn't think that, I would tell you. Trust me.
That's all fair.
I just think.
How about this for an Eastern Conference Final? Ready?
Mm-hmm.
How about the New York Rangers against the Florida Panthers?
I don't think that's entirely out of the question. Again, I think Florida made an interesting move with the acquisition of Matthew Tkachuk. But there are a few question marks that I have with the Florida Panthers. Number one, why did you let go of Brunette? Like, he was the coach that came early in the season. He was the interim after, they had to fire Quenneville because of the whole Brad Aldrich allegation with Chicago, which obviously he deserved that. I don't really want to get too much into that. But Andrew Brunette did a really good job with them. Then they ended up winning, like, the President's Trophy. And then they just let him go and replaced him with Paul Maurice, who I'm not sure is necessarily an upgrade. The other question mark I have is playoff Bob, because Sergei Bobrovsky, while he's had his moments where he can be decent, and while that wasn't really the case last year, I think last year they just got smoked by the better team. Like, he's let out some bad goals during playoff time, and it makes you wonder if that contract was really worth it. And spoiler alert, I've probably given you the spiel a number of times. You never invest like that on a goaltender.
Totally, yeah. I mean, unless you have all that, you have your other team completely set, then yes. But to go there first, that's a bit of a reach. So let's go Rangers and let's go a Ranger and Panther conference final. And in the West, let's go with the Avalanche and the Oilers to meet in the conference final. And how about a Stanley Cup final of the New York Rangers against the Edmonton Oilers?
I am going to go a little bit differently. I'm going to give you a Rangers Lightning repeat.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I can't put the Panthers beating the Lightning, although that wouldn't necessarily surprise me. I still think they have a good amount of the horses, and then they're the more talented team. But as far as who I think wins that series, again, if I was being biased, I'm not a biased person. If I truly didn't think the Rangers could beat the Lightning on a rematch, I would tell you. But again, Scout's honor, I truly think the Rangers can beat the Lightning. I've got the Rangers playing in the Stanley Cup Finals. Now, do I have them winning against whoever they're playing in the Western Conference? I don't know, because in that department, I have the Colorado Avalanche. And if you thought I was scared with the Carolina Hurricanes, you got a whole nother thing coming with talking about the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, that's for sure. But Hank, you know what? This is a lot of fun. I love the fact that we're going to get all 4 sports. We're going to have that sports equinox real soon. I mean, and then you have college football happening. I mean, there's just so much going on. I mean, our heads are going to explode. We're not going to get a lot of sleep. We're going to be adrenaline pushed throughout the whole way. So we'll find out.
And I can't wait to go back to the October 17th. That's the first game I have. Unfortunately, I don't have the home opener in my ticket plan, but fortunately I have the second home game of the season against the Anaheim Ducks, and hope to God that game isn't on the same day that the Yankees are playing game 5 of the LDS. Otherwise that'll be, I don't know what I'll have to be able to be doing with that.
Or you just hope the Yanks play in the afternoon and then you pull the whole doubleheader. You do the once in a lifetime doubleheader, right? But
hey, I pull a Ferris Bueller, skip work, go to that. Why not?
Absolutely. Hey, listen, you only live once, and you don't get many moments like this, so take it all in and enjoy. But we'll find out what happens. There's definitely going to be a lot to talk about on your shows, on my show, on all of our shows here. And when we're back next week, it'll be just as good. Just a couple of quick programming notes for you folks. I'll be on Empty the Bench, episode 156, coming up this Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. We'll also have a Monty Moment dropping this week on just the crazy college football weekend that is upcoming. So that'll be dropping on Thursday. Hank and I, of course, be back on Friday for our pro football picks against the spread. And check out our social media account, Game On ETB, for our Thursday night pick. Of course, we did not get to that because there's just been so much going on that we didn't. And also, would you really want to see us breaking down Commanders, Bears? Nah, I don't think so. But, of course, follow us across our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Game On ETB and Game On _ETB. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel at ETB Networks so you know when all of our programming and videos are going to come up. And, of course, our personal handles, which are on the bottom of your screen, and they're taking right there. Look at that. Right on cue. So, Hank, enjoy your week. Let's go Yanks. Let's go Big Blue. And LGR, no quit in New York, baby, right?
You're damn right.
Absolutely, folks. Keep it locked in here to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network for all the shows. And for Hank and Dictor, I'm Johnny Montalbano. We'll catch you later in the week and right back here for episode 29 of the show next week.